Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Level Up CX Summit of 2020 and 2021. This is our opening event, our opening day of Level Up CX Summit, and we're looking today at scoring 100% for CX in the 90% economy, a blueprint for customer management in the new economy. My name is Anthony, and I am your host and your admin today. I'll be driving the slides, and I'll be introducing our speakers in a moment, but perhaps just a little bit of context. What is this all about? We're obviously living through an unprecedented time in history, and what we've seen is that businesses are grappling with how to respond to these times, how to understand the new customer mindset, establishing a response, and ultimately regaining what has been lost, because a lot has been lost. So in response, what we've done is we've designed a series of events and invited international thought leaders to join us in presenting a blueprint for customer management in the new economy. We also want to create awareness, we want to share experiences and stories, and we want to help CX professionals to level up so that they can survive and thrive into 2021 and beyond. So we have actually structured the Level Up CX Summit into 4 parts. Today is part 1, where we really are looking at an overview of the 90% economy and how that affects us and what CX professionals should be doing. Number 2 will be customer journey orchestration with big data and AI. Number 3 will be the marketing role of the CX professional. And finally, we're going to be bringing it all together with our final event, which is in January. Customer journey acquisition, retention, and optimization. We're thrilled that you are here today. Thank you for taking the time to join us. There are golden threads that are going to be running through this entire series, so please, we really hope that you follow along and join us for the coming events as well. A little bit of housekeeping before I introduce our 2 speakers. Like many of you, we are in our homes at the moment, so please be gracious if you hear dogs or children or anything like that. Our roadmap for the day is that it's going to largely be a discussion between our speakers, who I'm going to introduce now. And then if we have time, I really hope we have time, we are going to pause for a Q&A at the end. So on that, you should see a little questions section of your webinar widget. Feel free to send any questions through, and we will try very hard to address them in real time towards the end of the webinar. If, of course, we're unable to do that because of time, then we will address them offline. And obviously, please stick around so that we can make sure that you get the recording and the material for this event, as well as details of the coming events, and you'll have that in your inbox as soon as possible. So I'd like to now introduce our speakers. Firstly, we are thrilled to be joined today by Lior Arussy on the left. Lior, why don't you introduce yourself quickly?
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone to our webinar, to the series. Lior Arussy, I've been in the customer experience business for over 20 years, a little bit on the technology side with NICE, and later I founded Strativity Group, which became a global consulting organization specializing in customer experience and transformation. Published about 8 books. My latest one is Next Is Now.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lior, and wonderful to have you here. And on the right, our own CEO and co-founder, Michael Renzon. Mike?
Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Renzon. I'm the CEO and co-founder of inQuba, as Anthony introduced me. I've been in the customer experience business directly with inQuba. We founded the company 10 years ago, and prior to that, for probably 10 or 12 years, but from a channels perspective, as the founder of an e-commerce company, and then founder of a company that focuses on call center technology. So I bring a lot of the practical aspects of the technology and the systems to my breadth within customer experience.
Brilliant, thanks, Mike, and looking forward to the discussion. Before I stop talking completely, I would just like to invite you to grab a post-it or take a screenshot of that hashtag inQuba CX Summit. I'm going to invite you to, during the course of this webinar, to share some on your platform of choice, share some insights or thoughts that you may have. What we're going to do is we're going to grab 3 of those, and 3 people will be sent a copy, 1 copy each of Lior's most recent book, which is called Next is Now. So please go ahead and share some stuff. And now I'm going to hand over to Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Great. Thanks so much, Anthony. Earlier in this year, this is pre-COVID, I read a Forrester article. It was a really good article, and it questioned the impact of customer experience programs and the results as customer experience practitioners that we were getting. And it really was a 360 kind of view. And what we saw really unexpectedly across the world was the outbreak of the COVID pandemic, which trickled in January, and by March this year was really in full steam across so many countries. And what we have seen coming out of this, the first phase of the pandemic, across countries, the first one to probably come out was China, and no one really understood how economic activity would ensue coming out of this. And the economists coined a fantastic phrase called the 90% economy, in that countries obviously return to a level of economic activity, but it's at a 90% level, and by the 90%, there is a literal meaning to it, in that the global economy has shrunk anywhere from between 5 and 10%, but they're not particularly taking a literal take on it. What they're saying is, if you fly, your flying experience would be different. And one of my children actually flew on a local holiday recently, and the flying experience was so different to any other flying experience that they had. I took an Uber during the course of last week. I had an evening arrangement, and I noticed that the restaurants were really full. People were out and about. And on my way home, I actually said to the Uber driver, well, how's your business going? And he said, well, I'm so happy that we're picking up customers again. So I said, well, what level are you at? And he said, well, I'm actually at 20%. And I was quite shocked, because the restaurants were full to capacity. It seemed to be thriving, but now you've got this drag effect where an Uber driver is 20% of where they were before. And this impact is quite a far-reaching impact, and there are a number of themes as customer experience practitioners which come to the fore, and they can be categorized into loyalty as we know it. There's a term called loyalty shock, where the way we understood loyalty beforehand is just not the same as it will be in this 90% economy. There's been a huge drive towards digital. The consumer of today has really become a value consumer. So much of the notion around luxury brands and so on has shifted towards value, where in many ways people are really reassessing absolutely everything about their economic life and about what they spend on, what their monthly debit order run looks like. There's also a concept of health and caring economy, where companies that focus on these things and give people a sense of assurance are certainly faring a whole lot better. One of the biggest shifts that we've seen, not just theoretically, but within our own customer base, is this shift to digital. And we're dealing with a number of customers with respect to this digital shift, and we're seeing things that we've never ever seen before as customer experience practitioners. We seeing customers say to us that a project, or the nature of a project, needs to be so rapid that instead of it being a kind of setup configuration, deploy, get your survey responses and and apply those. They're wanting to see a capability where they can support sprint teams in the design of that particular digital channel or digital forms in literally a weekly kind of feedback, and they want to be able to test interventions on a weekly basis to see what that impact is. And we're getting very different kinds of questions to what we were getting a few years ago. For example, we're getting 90% of people who fill out this particular form showing that they're interested, and we're only getting 10% closure rate. Can you tell us why? So these things are all interesting, and everyone knows about COVID. There's nothing that I could tell anyone about COVID specifically, but I think the big question for us is what's the reason to care about this? As customer experience practitioners, what's the reason for us to care about it? And how does this apply to us, and what should we be doing differently? And what we're seeing is pretty much not everything, but a big chunk of what customer experience professionals were doing to support their business a year ago and 2 years ago is probably only 20% of what the business is asking of those customer experience professionals in supporting the business today. And we talking to customers. There's one customer in Australia. We presented the session to Australia earlier in the day, and one of the customers that we're dealing with in that market, they really want to get to grips with retention issues. They're asking the question why. We don't know at a deep level and at a highly segmented level why customers are leaving. We know we have a brilliant value proposition, and we see people leaving, and the way of running customer experience is not telling us inherently in a scientific way why this particular thing is happening. And we have another customer where the marketing department has come to the customer experience team, and they're saying to them, we need help. Before, most of our activity within marketing was around acquisition, bringing in new customers, but we need insight. We need you to be able to tell us how to do in-experience marketing, which is something that we haven't seen typically across our international customer base, where marketers are asking these kinds of questions of customer experience practitioners. So what we've done is we've designed a 4-part series called the Level Up CX Summit, and it's really targeted at people like yourself and myself, customer experience practitioners, to go through in a very systemic way, starting right off with the customer. So who is this customer? What has changed about them? What is still the same about this particular customer? And if we know this about the customer, if we know that this is where we're going, what we're doing, what our customers are doing, what do we need to do as customer experience professionals to stay relevant? And not just to stay relevant for our own careers and our own longevity, but to really become strategic within our businesses, to become the go-to place that people are really trying to answer these kinds of questions inside our company, whether it's BI people, marketing people, operations people. We really see customer experience professionals who are agile, who are prepared to really move quickly, really being able to come out of COVID as highly strategic individuals inside the organization, because more than ever, the divisions within those organizations are asking for answers. They're asking for answers rapidly, and they're asking for very deep data about the customers, and the customer experience professionals are really the group of people who are probably in the strongest place to be able to answer this if they are prepared to be agile and to move quickly. And we see quite a few of our customers these kinds of transitions happening. So it's not something that we just speaking about as a vendor. We're seeing these pockets of activity within our customer base. They're talking to us about it. But the one thing that we are seeing is that there's a gap in knowledge around, we want to do this, we're doing parts of it, but how do we organize ourselves? What methodology should we be using? How do we organize the data that we have within these different areas of the company to be able to provide these solutions? So what we've done, I've been tracking Lior Arussy, the founder of Strativity, is with us today. He was somewhat of an icon for me. Lior, I've never shared that with you. Right when we started inQuba, we looked at a lot of your work 10 years ago. You were an absolute pioneer in the space, and today you're a leading thought leader in the space. And I love the way that you are able to explain these things at a very behavioral type of level around what is happening with customers. So we can start there and we can make sense of it, and then we can draw all the way down into what we're calling a blueprint for customer experience management for 2020 and onwards. So I'm going to hand over to Lior and really let's start getting those insights.
Thank you very much, Michael, and welcome everyone to our session today. The three words on the screen hopefully should not be unfamiliar to you. Loneliness, uncertainty, and fear is probably the summation of what customers today feel. There's been lockdowns, some of them in New York right now, fearing another lockdown. In California, we're not even sure what's going on. When it comes to loneliness, on a day when Disney is announcing 28,000 employees laid off because Disney California is not seen to be opening anytime soon, our customers have experienced a tremendous amount of emotional shock and existential shock. They've struggled with topics that they've never really struggled before. The fear in terms of health and life, the uncertainty of when we're going to be able to do whatever we can do. We're seeing right now 7 in 10 Americans are reporting a more stressful moment in their career. We are experiencing a 20% increase in antidepressant prescriptions in the US. And loneliness, I don't think I need to explain to anyone. We can hug people, we can shake hands, and oftentimes we don't see our grandparents as we would have liked to do. And when you face change, which is what I discussed in Next is Now, I actually 2 years ago instituted the notion that change resilience, which is the scope and the speed in which you adapt to change, is probably going to be the defining factors for individuals and organizations. And when we face change, there are 3 options. We can fight it, we can fly from it, we can go and face it and actually conquer it. And we've seen the spectrum of reactions out there, from those who are calling it fake news to, for example, the Four Seasons in New York who decided to offer rooms to medical staff, to Medtronic making a legendary decision to provide the specs for the respirators to everyone who wants to use it. But the one critical thing that I need you to take from here, if we can just progress with the slide, our customers before COVID-19 and our customers after COVID-19 are not going to be the same customers. It's not a delay in our plans. Our customers are evolving, our customers are changing, our customers are becoming someone different than what they thought they are. And if we don't recognize it as customer experience professionals, and we don't adapt to it accordingly with strategies and tactics in order to implement that, we're going to miss the boat, and that Forrester report that Michael read at the beginning of the year will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So let's take a look for a second at what really happened to our customers. When we think about our customers, first and foremost, and I think without any doubt, we all became digital experts. We are now using digital tools to get online deliveries of food to our houses, online delivery of groceries. Our life in digital became from we use digital to we are digital. And according to some, probably the innovation curve has moved by or accelerated by about 5 years in terms of moving toward late adopters of digital. In addition to that, we are empowered to live our purpose. We can actually express ourselves. We can choose products that are relevant to us. And one of the interesting choices we are seeing with American consumers right now is that they're looking for companies who have done well and good during COVID-19. That became all of a sudden a decision criteria. Many of us have actually surprised ourselves in terms of the creativity and in terms of self-sustainment. So Michael, if you think, for example, about a habit or an action or something that you had to give up during COVID-19 that you never really thought you would have to do, or a practice that you needed to start doing that you didn't know you can, what will come to mind?
Lior, it was far-ranging. I think one of the luxuries that we have is that we have people who help to maintain our homes, and over the period I did absolutely everything. I became an expert in cleaning, sweeping, doing very, very practical things. I think the other things, and it's quite interesting, is I actually realized how much of the things that we buy and we think we need are not really driven by need. They're actually driven by societal comparison and what society expects from us. So it went right down to me for those people who can afford to buy a new car post COVID. And when that time comes, to me, even evaluating things around brand, how important is brand, and how important is utility or functionality. So it was far-ranging. It touched every aspect of my life.
You're absolutely right. And what we've seen with consumers, vast dimensions of their lives have changed. We date differently. We raise kids differently because they're stuck at home. The education system is going through some changes. The way we eat, the way we drive, if we drive at all of these things have gone through tremendous amount of change. And one of the things that I talked about in the book is how do we survive change? And one of my advice is stay true to your core cause, to what drives you. And one of the stories that really touched my heart during COVID-19 was actually a story about an executive chef at the Rosewood Hotel in Santa Barbara, California, who found himself one day with no guests. And he's a chef and he loves to cook, and decided to use a truck that he found and start cooking for homeless. Because he said at the end of the day, I'm a cook, and I cook for people, and I want to see people happy through food. And within the first 2 months, he delivered 12,000 meals to homeless in the Santa Barbara area. One example of many that we captured, and what it showed us is that we are creative, we can be resilient in ways that we have never imagined.
A recent report that was published in the Wall Street Journal, I believe about 2 days ago, actually is showing an 18% increase in applications for new businesses in the US. About 3.2 million Americans have chosen to open a new business in no other time than COVID-19, when other businesses are probably going through some difficult times. It's an 18% increase from the same period in 2019. In fact, what they're doing is they're recreating hope. And if we want to be part of our customers' lives, we need to understand what are those changes that they're experiencing, and more importantly, how do we recreate hope and trust with them, especially in times where they actually became the new superheroes. They rose up to a new level of performance that they never believed that they can. With that, let's explore what is not changing, because as many things change, we are still human beings. So can we go to the next one? One of the things that we have seen and experienced during COVID-19 is an amplification of humanity and empathy. Almost every article at the beginning of the COVID-19 have talked about the need for humanity and for empathy to be shared with customers. And guess what? We as brands, we as organizations have done a phenomenal job at that. You know what happened as a result of it? In the past, we talked about humanity and compassion as the differentiating factors of the customer experience. Now they're actually part of the expectations. They became part and parcel because our customers know that we can demonstrate humanity, we can demonstrate compassion, we can demonstrate emotions, and that becomes part of it. Our customers will continue to seek hope, even though hope for them today might be getting a different definition of something much more existential. Customers will be seeking value, but as you mentioned, Michael, for many customers, convenience was value, because if certain products were not available and I had to go and fight for toilet papers or for gym dumbbells, so guess what? They became my value as opposed to a brand or luxury that was available to us in the past. They're looking for relevant engagement. My first advice to everyone is do not assume that the customers pre-COVID-19 are going to be the same customers post-COVID-19. There are new superheroes, they are much more self-resilient, they are reconsidering their choices, and we need to update our relevant engagement to that lifestyle. Remember, loneliness, uncertainty, and fear. Those experiences are not going to go away that quickly. Authenticity will play an important role. We always talked about it, but authenticity pre-COVID-19 is not going to be the same one post-COVID-19, because again, I want to do business with somebody who lived through the same issues. And again, we are seeing that today as part of the deciding factors when people are choosing certain brands versus other brands. The last one is emotions fused with rationality. The fact that we needed compassion and humanity was very important, but don't forget, at the end of the day, I need to get the job done. I need to complete my task. I need to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish. We need to go and examine how are we going to do that in light of those challenges. Let's go to the next slide and maybe explore something here as well. One thing that is not going to change, and probably is the best definition I've ever seen for customer experience, is the answer is yes. What is the question? Our jobs as brands, as experience creators and inspirers, is to provide the path to yes for our customers. Imagine that as you go through digitalization of a lot of your processes are now moving to the hands of your customers, which means what is your added value? If your customer is now serving themselves, selling themselves through mobile apps and other tools, what is the added value? When they contact us, they're actually looking for a solution that is outside of their process. That's the essence of the answer is yes. What is the question? And let me share with you a small story, Michael, if I have a moment. We had the privilege of working with Mercedes-Benz, among many other clients in the US, from Delta Airlines to Johnson & Johnson and many in between. And we worked with the employees, 25,000 employees across 360 dealerships, around the concept of the answer is yes. We are here to enable things. We are here not to say no, but rather to find a path to yes. And a customer once called one of the dealerships in Connecticut, and he said, I'm bringing my car for service and I'd like to get a loaner. And the service advisor who responded to this call said, that will be my pleasure. Thank you for letting us know. We'll have a loaner available to you. And the customer said, no, stop for a second. I would actually like to request an S-Class. For those of you who are not familiar, S-Class is the highest level within the Mercedes-Benz fleet. S-Class are not available as part of the loaners because they're way too expensive. We want to sell them. We don't want to actually provide them as loaners. And in the traditional way, according to the process, the service advisor should have answered the customer, thank you very much for your request, but you're probably going to get a CLA or a C-Class because we don't provide them. The process says no. Instead, they went for the emotional. They asked the customer, what's the occasion? Why would you need an S-Class? And the customer said, to be honest with you, I was diagnosed with cancer. And actually, the road to the hospital is 3 hours and it's a bit bumpy. And I would like an S-Class because it's the most stable vehicle that you have and it doesn't hurt me. At that point, the service advisors turned to him and he said, you know what, let me see what I can do. Called him an hour later and he said, you know what, I found an S-Class. It's not a loaner, it's a certified pre-owned, it's 2 years old, but it will give you the stability that you want. And he asked the customer, when are you planning to come? And he said, I was planning to come at 7:30 in the morning. He said, wonderful, how about me coming to your house and we'll exchange the cars. The following day, the customer is waiting at 7:30, an S-Class shows up with 2 individuals, the service advisor, another individual. They're exchanging keys, and that individual is taking the customer's car and driving on his way to the dealership. And when the customer is asking for the keys for the S-Class, the service advisor turned to him and he said, by the way, no, sir, today you're sitting in the back. We arranged for you some refreshments and food, and we'll be driving you to the hospital. I'll be waiting for you until you finish your treatment, and I'll be driving you back until you're gonna get back home. The customer started to burst in tears, and he just could not contain himself, and he was mumbling, my own family doesn't have time to take me to the hospital, and my car dealership is taking me to the hospital. And that's the essence of the answer is yes. We are there to understand the humanity that they bring to their request. It's not just a request, it's not just a transaction. COVID-19 taught us how to think humanly, how to think emotionally, how to solve compassionately. And the answer is yes. In the future is going to be even more resounding in terms of what they will be expecting from us. And we need to go back and examine how do we provide a path to yes to our customers' requests. Let's continue on this journey. And this reminds me that when we think about customer experience, and this, Michael, by the way, connects well to what you mentioned with the Forrester report, because that report, by the way, did not catch me too surprised. I think many customer experience professionals fail to connect to the ultimate numbers of the organizations. And that's why some organizations got tired of the process and tired of the discipline. And I recall being with an insurance company in the US who brought me to speak to all the salespeople, about 5,000 people, major event. And they said to me, you know, Lior, you're in customer experience. We're going to start with sales. And then we're going to bring you because customer experience comes last. The first guy goes on stage, he's the head of life insurance, and he says, oh, if you're only going to do this, this, and that, we're going to capture another $100 million of additional policies in the coming year. And everybody clapped. Next guy was from, I believe, property. And he said, oh, if we're only going to do this, this, and that, we're going to capture another $75 million. And everybody clapped and cheered and everything else. So very quickly I understood this is a pissing contest. And if I want to win it, I need to have a number that is bigger than their number. So I'm going on stage, I'm the last one, and I'm saying, I've got $1.2 billion with a B. And everybody, there was silence. Partially because nobody knew who I was and why do I have $1.9 billion. And I turned to them and I said, you are losing $1.9 billion every year because 1 million customers are leaving you every year. Forget the new customers, forget the new policies. Focus on your existing customers and you can make up that number and even more if you only focus on them correctly. And that's the challenge we're all facing. Managing the total customer value as opposed to transactions. Today, our journeys are managed around transactions, one transaction at a time, as opposed to starting by asking, who are high-value customers? How many transactions ideally can they do with us? What do we need to know about their journey? And how do we make their journey personalized and optimized so they will make 5 transactions with us and not 1 transaction as they often do. So we need to shift if we want to be relevant and if we want to help the organization capture the 10% from the 90% that, from the 100% that now is becoming 90%, we need to focus on total customer value and start managing by the potential as opposed to by the transaction. Let's go next and look at what does it mean to us when it comes to connecting with our customers. Our customers are looking to accomplish. Our customers are not just looking for transactions. And the essence of it is they all became superheroes during COVID-19. They know they can do more. They know that they're capable of more. And we need to evolve from people who help them complete tasks to people who help them to accomplish. For that, we need to truly understand where they're coming from, what they're trying to achieve. We need to truly treat them as a customer of one and not just segment them and pull them and everything else. We need to hyper-personalize them and nudge them a little bit in order to help them achieve their goals. Create unique experiences. They don't want to feel like everyone else. They know they can do certain things. They learn about some new skills that they have. They're superheroes already. We can give them a new cape if we're going to focus on what I call accomplishments as opposed to completions. And for that, by the way, we're going to have to develop a brand new toolkit. And the new toolkit, unlike the past, where we manage if we can go to the next slide, please. Unlike the past, where we manage journeys as one size fits all, we need to start looking at journeys as a very individual journey. Each and every one of them will have a very different way in which to achieve their goals. We need to understand the meaning. We need to understand the purpose. Just like that service advisor who heard the request for an S-Class and went for the meaning, for the purpose, and discovered that it's a totally different story than just a customer trying to squeeze them for a free upgraded loaner. We need to overlay that context and need to start anticipating where they need our help and how can we help them accomplish. One of the things that we're going to need to learn in our organization is agility. We learned that during COVID-19 and it cannot go away. Once we demonstrated that organization can be agile and adaptable, the customers are expecting us to continue with doing that. Just as we demonstrated during COVID-19, or customers have experienced it from other vendors, they would expect us to do that. And relevance will need to be updated with a sense of hope and with infusing certainty in times of uncertainty. It's a brand new narrative that we need to create in order to achieve that. And ultimately, optimize the conversation. If your goal is the total potential and not just the transaction, then you need to conduct your conversations accordingly. With that, I want you to imagine a marathon, and let's go to the next slide and to the questions. The marathon seemed to be the same exact 42 kilometers that everybody needs to run, but different runners have a different agenda. Some wants to finish within 2.5 hours. They want to cross that finish line as winners. They want to win some medals. Others are there for the first time and they just want to finish it. Others are there because they're supporting a family member who's sick and they're trying to do something for them. Others are there as a family. Others are there as supporting a charity. There are different meanings and purposes that comes from the same exact journey. As a vendor, you have a choice. Some vendors, how do they participate in a marathon? They provide the bottles of waters. They sponsor the bottle of waters, and they are strategically located across the marathon, and they hope that the runners are actually going to grab some. However, some are playing a totally different game, and those guys are actually personal trainers. They know what the accomplishment that the customers are looking for, and they're actually working towards helping them get there. So as you look at your customer experience and your journeys, here are some challenges to contemplate and think about. How do you actually understand the real journeys that your customers are going through? It looks like the one size fits all 42 kilometers of a marathon. It's not necessarily the case. How do you understand why they're dropping off their journeys? Just in a marathon, we have some people who stop in the middle. Others are probably hopping on a taxi and trying to get to the last 1 kilometer and then claim that they made it. Why they're dropping off? How are they feeling across their journey? By the way, there are ups and downs in the journey of a marathon. Journey of a marathon is not a consistent one, but it has its ups and downs. For those of you who don't know, there are specific music tracks and playlists in order to help you reach certain milestones across that. How do we create that music list that can actually support them emotionally? Where should we intervene and when we are not invited? And ultimately, how do we measure the outcome, the accomplishment, not just the completion? It's not about crossing the finish line. It's about accomplishing something greater and bigger. During COVID-19, our customers accentuated their emotions because of that uncertainty, loneliness, and fear. If we don't understand that and develop our customer experience journeys to be dynamic, agile, and most importantly, personal to them, that actually amplify their capabilities, accelerate their superpower, and make them the superheroes, we're going to miss even the 90% of the economy that the economists told us is out there for us to grab. With that, Michael, how can inQuba help in that process?
Well, Lior, I think the points that you make, and each time I hear you, I really get a sense of not just the complexity of what companies have to do, but also the scale and the magnitude. And I'll listen to a story and go like, that's an incredible story that happened with the S-Class, but how would Mercedes-Benz scale that? And how do they know who to scale that to and who to offer the S-Class to and who who they perhaps should not offer that S-class to. And I think when you talk about the answer is yes, the answer is yes, but it's a very nuanced yes. There's a lot behind it, and we've seen behind even the best attempts of companies to inject a culture of yes we can into that organization. There has to be a capability to be able to scale this in a very systematic way. And the idea around this, we've been working on this now for 3 or 4 years, and the methodology, the model around it that we find that can actually answer these questions is journey management. And inQuba as a company, we like this idea from the start. We built the architecture around our methodology around this idea of journey and journey management, and in many ways we were a little bit early, and we used that core architecture really to develop and run net promoter type of programs. If we fast forward and we accelerate, next slide please, the idea that we're talking around journey and journey management is not foreign to customer experience professionals, because for many years customer experience professionals have been using journey maps. The limitations around journey maps though is that they are static, they conceptual and they static. So a journey map around, let's say, a simple process like a credit card acquisition would be customer applies for a credit card, customers approved for a credit card, submits their KYC information or know your customer or equivalent, and moves through the process, card delivery and so on and so on. But what we're seeing in the data when we actually digitize what's happening in the real customer journeys, we're seeing that in many of these perfect journey maps that have been really agonizingly conceptualized, upwards of 90% of the customers are not achieving the goals that those journey maps are set out to. And Lior, when you speak about the answer is yes, I'm not even talking about the S-class kind of example. I'm talking about very basics like I showed interest in a credit card, I saw benefits in their credit card, I want the card delivered, I want it activated, I want my PIN, I want my tap and go to work, especially with COVID now, without wrestling with the card and phoning call centers. And I want to get the benefits of that card and know about that card. And we're seeing that in so many of these processes, only 10% of the people are getting there. So we often talk about 100% increases in conversion along certain journeys. And the reason we're getting those kind of results is that when we take a look at the data, the conversion rates are so low as a starting point that there's such a massive scope for conversion and improvement. So you joked a little bit about that 1.7 billion, but when we actually look at the data, there's at least hundreds of millions in there that can easily be converted, and we're seeing that in the data, and we're actually getting the results through this idea of journey management. So the core idea around journey management is to start with the idea of taking these maps and digitizing these particular maps. And the way we do that is with the 5-step methodology. And when I talk about a methodology, I'm really talking about this blueprint that we're talking about to manage so many of the problems, Lior, that you spoke about. So the first one is that the answer is yes. We need to understand what we're trying to get our customers to do, and we need to start asking a very different question. The current question that most customer experience professionals ask is, how did we do? So they'll have a process as a company and say, well, how did we do on that process? But what they're not tracking is across the entire customer base, not just a sample, why are customers doing the things that customers should be doing, or that you would like them to be doing to get to that yes. So we've got a concept of a goal. and that goal is getting to yes, and that is really the first thing in that journey. The next thing is this idea of what we have now coined as the emotional journey. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but we're finding fascinating results in the customer data. We've just completed a big project for a broad diversified financial services organization. And what we found is that premium payments on investment products has very little to do with step one, the transactional journey. It actually has to do with the emotional journey. And we've come up with an understanding or with a methodology of ask why people leave journeys and ask them very early on. And usually there's 6 or 7 core reasons why people leave journeys or why they don't start journeys within a particular domain. So that would change from telco or from short-term insurance to life insurance. And we're developing these models around getting a really good idea as to why people are leaving the journeys. And then what we do is we actually seed those journeys with conversations. So we want to generate far more conversations. So rather than getting survey response rates of 8% or 10% or 12%, we want to have conversations on a much broader scale. And when we actually do these things as conversations, and Lior spoke about engagement, we're finding that we're getting 30% and 30% plus responses and engagements in these conversations as opposed to a survey. In step 3, the kind of thing that we're doing is overlaying the emotional context against the transactional or the journey context to be able to start blending the data to find out the reasons behind why people are doing the things they're doing. And step 4 is then we say, well, we've got really good insights as to why these people didn't get to yes. What can we do? What would that orchestration look like? And step 5 is repeating that process. So customer journey management or customer experience management, rather than being seen as a driver towards this optimizing NPS, we see it as optimizing customers getting to yes, and in a very iterative type of process that we can keep moving these customers. So I'm going to touch on these, each of these step by step, and kind of give you a sense and a feel for how it looks and how it works in rolling out this methodology. So the first step is digitizing the actual customer data, and what we see is a view that starts looking like this. Now, this is real, it's dynamic, and within, I don't know if it's a year or 2 years, the kind of thing that we envisage is you'll actually be able to see these things flowing in real time as your, I don't know how much utility, but you'll be able to do it. But as your data flows through in real time, you'll be able to see the shape of your customers in the customer journey. And the thickness of the line illustrates how many people are moving through that particular part of the journey. Now, Lior made the point earlier that most of the customer experience profession is focused on transactions. What is happening at a particular point, asking the question how. Journey shifts that because we're far more interested in seeing why and how are people flowing through journeys and across channels in an omni-channel, in a digital environment, if they are touching branches, and seeing what is happening to people as they actually flow through. And we want to start off with the purpose or the goal or getting to yes, and we want to be able to identify obstacles across those journeys. So that's really step 1. If we move to step 2, what we see in step 2 is a very different kind of measurement. Let's call it a dynamic VOC program, because instead of loading up your questions and running these things for a year or 2 years or 3 years, the way that we're working now is far more dynamic. We're actually taking a look at a journey of interest where a group or cohort of people are not getting to yes. And the first thing we want to understand is who are those people? So we use customer data to understand, well, those people are, for example, young people between the ages of 20 to 25 who have this kind of product and who fit into this kind of income band. So already we're starting to get a sense of who are those people, and there's often multiple clusters within that grouping. The next thing we want to know is, well, if we know that it's a group of people, we want to ask that group of people, that cohort specifically, well, in a conversation, well, please tell us why you didn't progress past this particular point. And it's unbelievable when we actually engage with people, the kind of feedback that we're getting back. We then want to contrast and compare with analytics tools that are part of the methodology and the product set, all those data sets. So what is the journey? What is the customer data? What is the emotional journey? What does that look like? What is the experiential data behind it? And the part we're working now is what is the value of that particular customer, because there could be certain journeys that are quite complex to fix, but it's just a low value journey in terms of those particular customers. And journey really gives us a methodology and a framework to be able to see these things working in concert. And that plays out in step number 3. So this is where we start blending and doing the overlays, which I've spoken about, and we can shift to step 4. And what we do in step 4 is we start looking at orchestrations, and the whole idea behind the orchestrations is that they're largely digital. So for any particular client, we can work on 50, 100, 200 different kinds of digital orchestrations. And the things that we're working on with clients are not simple marketing kind of campaigns. We want to be able to shape behavior. And I really talk about this idea of shaping behavior as people move through the journey. So let's say it's a retirement annuity product, and this is a real life example that we're working on with the client. We want to shape behavior, so things around assurance, things around product knowledge, things around understanding this product, things around reinvesting post leaving that particular company or post retirement. Those are things that we want to shape. So rather than just checking in, we're actually designing the marketing based on customer conversations during the course of these journeys to get such a good understanding of those particular cohorts or segments that we can shape those kinds of interactions. And step 5 is then to continue this process, measure the ROI, review and optimize. So I've gone through the methodology. I see we've got 3 or so minutes left. Lior, I just want to hand back to you. We started off with this idea of the 90% economy, and just get your kind of closing remarks on this.
Sure, thank you very much, Michael. And I have to say, you know, when you shared with me some of your case studies with increase of 80% to 100% conversion, that's a phenomenal track record. You know, I'll take a quarter of that every day for improvement of conversions. So when you ask yourself, how do I succeed in the 90% economy? How do I capture the 10% that's missing? The answer is actually quite simple. Get to understand your customers better and capture just 10% from existing customers that you haven't captured before. In order to achieve that, you really need to give your customers a reason not to spread their business elsewhere, not to spread their business between multiple vendors. And the way to achieve that is by understanding them emotionally and crafting the journeys to actually feed their life journeys. As you said, Michael, you know, in the past we managed maps like they were transactional. They were trying to actually focus on completion. We are actually trying to help our customers become the superheroes that they are, accomplish what they want to accomplish, and we can only do that by deepening our understanding, orchestration and optimization in a way that is personal for them, and then ultimately focusing on accomplishment. So we need to shift from empowering them, we need to shift from completion to accomplishment, and empowering them to achieve that.
Thanks so much, Lior. Every time I listen to you, I learn something new, and I really appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you for inviting me, Michael. It's a great pleasure.
So, thank you, Lior. So just to wrap up, we've run out of time for Q&A. Any of the questions that have come through, we'll certainly get to those and we'll be answering them offline. The way that we've designed the summit is in 4 parts, and it's really around education, sharing experiences, and upliftment of the CX professional community around really things that we are doing around the world with partners around the world that we believe are of relevance and interest. So the first part of the series was what you joined today, and that was really to set the context of this new customer and of the blueprint at the highest level. What we will be doing in the second part of the series, that's on the 28th of October, is we're going to be going a level deeper, and that level deeper is really about how do we work with different data types in a very practical kind of way, and how do we start using rules-based systems and AI. We're doing that with a company named Servian. They are specialists in using AI and machine learning around customer and customer experience management. On the 25th of November, we then are supported by Tech Mahindra, and we're going to be talking about marketing and the role of customer experience people in marketing and how we can shift and move the dial. Then the 27th of January in 2021, we're going to be moving and bringing everything together around journey, acquisition, retention, optimization, and bringing all of these aspects together to show how they can work in concert, and hopefully to be able to share some case studies with you. So that's a wrap for today, and I'll hand over to Anthony just to conclude.
So from my perspective, thank you very much, Lior and Mike. This was incredibly interesting and valuable. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank our attendees. Like Mike said, I have seen the questions come through. We are definitely going to address all of those questions offline, so please hang in there. But I think perhaps just parting thoughts. Lior, what would you like to leave us with? 20 seconds.
20 seconds. Connect to the inner customer in you. You're all customers. You've all experienced COVID-19. Don't think that your customers experience it differently. Just live what you lived through and try to apply it to your customers.
Brilliant. Thanks. Mike?
I love the idea of the answer is yes, and the way we would translate it is focus on goals. What are your customers trying to achieve? What are their goals, and get deep insights around it to be able to get those customers to their goals through answering the question why and how, rather than just how are we doing. That question of why has become more important than ever.
Wonderful. Thank you once again to our attendees, and please enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.